In a quiet countryside village, a kind widow named Marian lived in a small stone cottage among green rolling hills. Marian spent every day baking bread and tending her garden, living a simple but deeply honest and peaceful life.
Her only daughter Narcissa was stunningly beautiful, with long wavy brown hair and bright violet eyes full of charm. But Narcissa was filled with vanity and pride, spending long hours admiring her own reflection in the looking glass.
When Marian asked her daughter to help bake the bread, Narcissa refused, fearing the flour would dull her bright eyes. When asked to help plant seeds in the garden, Narcissa gasped in horror at the very thought of dirt on her fingers. Marian worried deeply about her proud daughter, knowing that such vanity and selfishness would lead to suffering one day. Every night, the devoted mother knelt beside her bed, praying earnestly for her beloved daughter to find true humility. One night, Marian lay awake in prayer when she heard her daughter laughing softly in her sleep from the next room. The worried mother crept quietly to the doorway and watched Narcissa smiling in her dreams with a face full of delight. The next morning, Marian gently asked her daughter what dream had made her laugh with such happiness during the night. Narcissa told her mother she had dreamed of a handsome man arriving in a grand copper coach to ask for her hand. The young woman described the gleaming coach in vivid detail, its polished surface shining under the sun like a jewel. Narcissa spoke with such excitement and deep certainty, believing the dream was a clear sign of a great destiny ahead. Marian felt a deep chill run through her heart, sensing that something dark and dangerous was hidden within those dreams. That night, the old woman prayed even harder, begging the heavens to protect her proud daughter from the coming danger. A handsome young farmer arrived at the cottage one bright morning, carrying fresh flowers and wearing his finest clothes. The young man had come to ask for Narcissa's hand, hoping she would agree to share a simple peasant life with him.
Are you busy right
Marian welcomed the farmer warmly into her home, delighted to see such a kind and hard-working man seeking her daughter. But when Narcissa saw the farmer standing humbly before her, she looked at him with cold contempt and sharp disdain.
Narcissa declared that she would never marry a common farmer, not even if he came riding in a coach made of copper. The young farmer stood heartbroken and humiliated, his flowers falling slowly to the ground as his hope was shattered. Marian tried desperately to change her daughter's mind, pleading with Narcissa to reconsider such a fine and worthy suitor. But Narcissa turned away coldly without a word, and the rejected farmer walked out through the door into the empty road. That very night, Marian again heard Narcissa laughing in her sleep, this time even louder and more joyful than before. In the morning, Narcissa revealed her new dream, a vision of someone offering her a magnificent golden diadem and crown. Later that same day, a fine nobleman arrived at the cottage in an elegant carriage, dressed in rich velvet and fine silk. The nobleman bowed gracefully before Narcissa and asked her to share a life of comfort and noble standing with him. Marian was deeply impressed by the nobleman, finding him handsome and well-mannered and truly worthy of her dear daughter. But the vain Narcissa refused him without hesitation, declaring that she deserved someone far greater and more powerful still. Marian begged her daughter to stop this foolish pride, warning that such arrogance was a dangerous trap set by dark forces. Narcissa simply shrugged and walked away, thinking her mother knew nothing of the glorious future that awaited her ahead. On the third night, Narcissa laughed louder than ever before, her joyful voice echoing clearly through the dark, silent house. Marian trembled in fear as she listened, knowing deep in her heart that each dream was pulling her daughter further away. The next morning, Narcissa described a powerful lord who came for her in a golden carriage with riches beyond all measure. That very afternoon, a dark and strikingly handsome stranger arrived at the village, drawing the attention of every person. The mysterious lord stepped out of his carriage wearing a long black coat with crimson lining
and a dark silver brooch. He presented Narcissa with a dazzling golden diadem that sparkled brilliantly and a magnificent dress woven of gold lace.
Narcissa was completely mesmerized by the stranger, her violet eyes wide and enchanted, unable to look away from his gaze. Marian watched from the doorway with terror in her eyes, sensing a powerful darkness hidden beneath his charming appearance.
The mysterious lord asked Narcissa to become his bride, promising her a life of unimaginable wealth and endless splendor. Narcissa accepted his proposal instantly, without a single moment of doubt, her eyes blazing with greed and wild excitement. The Lord revealed that in his kingdom, the bread was made of copper, silver, and gold, and she could choose whichever one. Narcissa laughed with delight and chose the golden bread without hesitation, believing it proved her destiny of greatness. Marian stepped forward with trembling hands and asked the dark stranger what kind of bread he truly intended for her child. The Lord smiled at Marian with cold amusement, but gave no clear answer, his golden eyes glinting with a hidden dark purpose. Marian begged Narcissa to wait and think carefully, warning that gold which comes too easily always carries a terrible price. But Narcissa only laughed at her worried mother, declaring that nothing could stop her from claiming the golden life she chose. Narcissa rushed to her chamber and dressed herself in the magnificent gold lace gown, placing the golden diadem on her head. She admired her reflection one last time, smiling proudly at the dazzling stranger who stared back at her from the mirror. Marian stood at the threshold of the cottage door, reaching out her hand and begging her daughter for one final embrace. But Narcissa walked straight past her mother without stopping, without looking back, and without speaking a single farewell. The Dark Lord helped Narcissa step into the grand copper coach, its polished surface gleaming under the fading afternoon light. The coach began to roll forward, carrying Narcissa away from the village and the only home she had ever known in her life. Marian collapsed to her knees in the doorway of the cottage, weeping bitterly as the coach disappeared beyond the distant hills. The old mother was left utterly alone, kneeling in prayer on the cold stone threshold as the last light of day faded away. The copper coach traveled through darkening lands as the sky turned from golden sunset to a deep and threatening purple gray. Narcissa watched through the carriage window as green hills gave way to barren rocks, dead trees, and cold rolling fog. At last, a massive dark castle appeared on a rocky hilltop, its tall spires reaching upward like claws into the stormy sky. The heavy iron gates groaned open as the coach crossed the long stone bridge, entering a courtyard silent as a graveyard. Inside the castle, everything was grand and lavish, with golden chandeliers and velvet furnishings, yet bitterly cold and empty. Narcissa walked through the enormous halls alone, her footsteps echoing off the stone walls, not a single soul in sight. The Dark Lord watched Narcissa from the shadows with a thin smile, his golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim, flickering light. For the first time, a cold wave of fear crept into Narcissa's proud heart, as she sensed the terrible truth of this place. The Dark Lord led Narcissa into a great dining hall and placed before her a single round loaf upon an ornate silver plate. The bread shimmered with a brilliant, cooked by a braved crust, gleaming like pure metal under the light of the torches. Narcissa reached out eagerly to tear a piece from the golden loaf, but her fingers met only cold, hard, solid metal instead. The golden bread was not real food at all, but a loaf of pure gold, beautiful to behold, yet impossible to eat or swallow. Narcissa looked up at the Dark Lord in horror and saw his charming mask fall away, revealing a cold and merciless true face. He told her this was the golden life he had chosen, a prison of wealth, with no warmth, no love, and no way to return. The great doors of the castle slammed shut with a thunderous echo, trapping Narcissa inside the cold and lifeless stone walls. Narcissa fell to the floor weeping bitterly, finally remembering her mother's warm bread and the simple home she had scorned. Trapped alone inside the dark castle, Narcissa wept for days and nights.
haunted by memories of her kind and loving mother. She remembered how Marion had baked warm bread each morning with her gentle hands, asking nothing in return but her love. Narcissa deeply regretted her vanity and pride, understanding at last that true wealth was the simple love she had rejected. With all her heart, she cried out for forgiveness, begging to return to the humble cottage and the mother she had abandoned. Her tears of genuine remorse fell upon the cold stone floor, and in that moment a warm golden light began to fill the room.
The dark enchantment shattered around her like breaking glass, the castle walls crumbling as bright morning sunlight poured in.
Narcissa opened her eyes to find herself lying in her own bed, with Marion weeping joyfully and holding her hand once again. From that day forward, Narcissa lived humbly beside her mother, grateful for warm bread and the simple gift of being loved.